Mostly I get asked, what should my kids do for a living is the number one question I get asked, probably of all of them.
Yeah. We actually have a similar question.
I'm sure you do. Everybody asks that. That's fine. And it was even worse than that because I would basically go to bed at like 4 a.m. I actually sent emails to my entire faculty. No doubt students are cheating at a rate they've never cheated before. No one's going to show you you're using AI in your company if they're worried they're going to get fired if they're more productive, right? I think this is a chance for exploration. So, I mean, I would go one step further and, right, ambition is rewarded right now. And even a failure is further than you get before and teaches you something. This is exciting. Hi, I'm Professor Ethan Mollick. I teach and research at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, run the Generative AI labs there. I've also written a book on AI called Co-Intelligence, which is sold in Korea along with the US.
How do you define AI?
So, actually, one of the biggest problems is the definition of AI is really vague, right? So if we talk about AI prior to sort of 2010, we were talking about sort of the science fictional idea of artificial intelligence where only a few computer scientists cared about it. And we talked about it from like 2010 to 2022, you'd be talking about big data. And then since then, we were talking about AI, we talked about generative AI, like large language models and related technologies that are very different than what came before.
What AI tools do you use most these days?
Okay, so when you think about AI right now, you kind of think about three things. You think about the AI model itself, right? So the big three at the time we're recording this, but it's not just about the models, that's the brains of the AI. It's also about the actual software applications you use. And then finally, what we call harnesses. Harnesses are the pieces of equipment given to the AI to let it do things. So harnesses let AI create images if they need to, write code, do web searches, all the kinds of access your files. So now when you think about AI tools, you think about all three of those together. So I use all of them, but I tend to use a lot of OpenAI's Codex and Claude Code and Cowork, which are versions that use your computer to help you do more work. Because a few things. One is, I think we all have this idea of AI from many years of television and movies, right? It was this, it's a machine that like if the stereotypical bad science fiction version is it can't, I do not understand love, and then the robot explodes if you try and explain love to it, right? Like we expect it to be logical and to not act quite like a human and to be all about sort of cool reasoning, not understand emotion. And instead we got large language models, which in a lot of ways work a lot like people. They are all about emotional content. They are about empathy. They were originally worse at math than other topics. Now that they've closed that gap. And so it's worth thinking about them as a person because that's the most easy way to get them to do work. At the same time, you have to remind yourself they're not a person. So Alien kind of puts that nice distance between yourself and the AI. So I actually, so the 3 Sleepless Nights idea from the book is really one where everybody who uses these systems enough has like a moment of crisis where they're like, what does this mean? What am I doing? And actually, I work with my wife on this a lot. We started the AI lab together. We do a lot of work together. And it was even worse than that because I would basically go to bed at like 4 a.m. and then she'd wake up at 4 a.m. and start working on AI stuff. And in the morning, we'd be like passing each other messages about what we did. And to me, it was, wow, this thing can do stuff. So you're like, projects I couldn't accomplish, now I'm doing it. What if I test it this way? What happens? And so there's a lot of anxiety, especially when you first use AI, it can almost seem almost miraculous. Like then you start to see the flaws after time, but at first it's like, what does this all mean for us? And so that really hit me in November. I actually sent emails to my entire faculty saying we really have to change everything about how we teach the next day. And they've come to believe me over the last couple of years. So there's a few things that are different. The biggest differences are, first of all, just ability. GPT 3.5, which was the original ChatGPT, was just dumber on every characteristic. And we could talk about test scores. It was basically, it looked like it was sort of a smart high school student when you measured it. And now we've got GPT 5.5 is solving math problems that only 2 or 3 people on the planet can solve. It also has become agentic. Now, this is one of those buzzwords that means a lot of things, but an agent is basically an AI tool that can go out and do work for you. So GPT 5.5 is really good. If you say, put together a TV script for me or something, it won't just write an answer. It'll do research for you. It'll look at, create images. It'll look up information, and it will actually do hours of work for you by just asking. So those are the big gaps. A bubble. So I could see arguing 6 months ago that AI was a bubble because we hadn't yet entered the sort of agentic era of AI use. I don't think many people think this is a bubble right now. Companies, I talk to CEOs of companies all the time who are getting huge amounts of value out of the system. I keep talking to companies that are blowing through their entire AI budget in months that they expect to spend in years. So there's a lot of money that people are getting value out of them as users of these systems. So it's hard to imagine there being a real bubble. Now that doesn't mean financial markets do what they do, right? It's always possible that something's overinflated or not. So we can separate a financial bubble, but if we want to talk about, is there a use bubble? Is AI going to go away? Is it not useful? I don't see any way you could argue that at this point. So we've actually collaborated for a long time. She has a doctorate in education. We ran before something called Wharton Interactive, and we built games for teaching. So I've always been interested in how do we democratize, especially business education for the world. So we built games that were, that would teach people how to do entrepreneurship. We built a fake space simulator that actually secretly taught you leadership skills. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about how do we teach people with AI. And when ChatGPT came out, we saw that it solved a whole bunch of problems that have plagued the education field for 10 years, right? I mean, it's causing problems too, to be clear, but it also could solve a whole bunch of problems. No doubt students are cheating at a rate they've never cheated before, but on the other hand, it could be an amazing tutor. And we thought it was important to illuminate for all these people trying to experiment, what were some ways to actually use this to go forward? So there's two differences. I actually have been kind of running this. I teach an entrepreneurship class, and that's where I've been teaching about AI. And I just did a new version of the class called Vibe Founding. And students launched startup ideas in 3 days. So they had to go for, they were doing a semester's worth of work in 3 days. So AI helped generate the ideas. It built the business plan. They had to actually launch with working code, which a lot of them most of them never coded in their lives. They had working code. They had to have a working PowerPoint presentation, all the financial models, all of that had to be built. So I know you can get a huge amount further today than you could. So the first thing that is really annoying to tell students, and nobody likes to hear, is that learning is hard and kind of has to be hard. So we call this desirable difficulties, is the phrasing in education theory. And so part of the problem with using AI is if you're just asking for help, the AI is trained to be a helpful assistant to you, and it will give you the answers to problems. And you'll think you're learning something, but you're not actually learning because you're not doing the mental work yourself. So it's really important to get the AI to act like a tutor or a teacher. And there's a few ways to do that. First of all three of the big AI companies have a tutor mode that makes the AI less likely to give you answers. Using it to tutor you, to answer questions, to quiz you, very powerful for AI use. And we now have data that shows that's true. There's a really nice study, one out of Taiwan, another one out of Africa, that show that when you make AI work like a tutor, you get big impacts on education. But if you just ask it questions, you're not going to learn. Sure. So a really useful thing might be to say, give the information about yourself. I am a student in Seoul and in high school or college or whatever grade you're in studying this. Here's my interests. I'm having difficulty with this. Here are a couple math problems that I was asked to solve, or a couple history problems. Can you help quiz me on these topics, and then explain what I'm missing, and help me understand the missing pieces, and then quiz me about them again. So just ask and say, don't give me any answers. I would need to be able to learn this on my own, and that will get you part of the way there. So there's a little update to this too. We've done some research at the Generative AI Lab. It used to be personas did two things for you. They would change how the AI responded, so act like Socrates. But the other was it would actually make the AI better at things. So if you said you are a physicist, it would do better at physics. That's no longer true. So telling the AI you are good at physics, or you're a physicist, or you're a mathematician doesn't make it better at math, but it still does change how it talks to you. So the personas I use the most often, and the one everyone should actually use the most, is be a critic. Because remember, we talked earlier about how AI can be sycophantic, how it can wants to make you happy. What you actually want is some honest answers or challenges. So be a critic is one of the most useful things you could say. When I'm writing, I often have different personas for writing too. You are a reader who is confused about AI. What should I clarify here? So I use personas for both kind of projecting what my work might do, but also to help me think more clearly. So part of this is we have to recognize that there are losses along with gains. Like, people are cheating right now. A lot of educational methods that we used to use that worked really well don't work well anymore. If you assign long essays to people, the AI will help them with essays. Like, your students will always want to cheat. They're always busy. They have other things to do. They're very incentivized to get high grades. They will cheat. So we have to think about how we're solving that problem. So we have to take advantage of the strengths of AI as an individualized, personalized tutor, but also think about how we're going to assess people, how we're going to make classroom experience meaningful. The right way is probably something called a flipped classroom. So you'll use AI tutors outside of class to teach you things, and inside of class, and a lot of people already do this. So like my students are assigned YouTube videos to watch outside of class, and then in class they do math, right? That's how we're going to end up doing things in a lot of fields. Well, outside of class, you'll be assigned to use AI to learn something, and then in class, you'll be doing exercises, experiences, working with other students on things. I think that's how things will end up looking. I think you want to be a T-shaped person, right? So I think you want to be a generalist with one area of deep expertise, right? So deep knowledge in a field. Have a good understanding of related fields so that you know like different things, directions you might want to head in. And then having a sense of taste about what you want to do, right? Like, the AI can give you thousands of images, thousands of paragraphs. How do you select the right one? And then finally, the idea of agency, of actually going out and giving things a try. So I find people who experiment, especially experiment in their field, tend to be very good at using AI. In terms of organizations, what I find is that if the CEO or top leadership team believes in AI deeply and is willing to take the risk that comes from experimenting, that is a big change. That is a big factor in company success. Try and use AI for everything. I wish I could say that there was a cheap way to do this, but I think you have to pay one of the three big AI companies. In the US it's $20 a month. There's $8 a month versions in some countries. But you have to pay, and you have to use the better model. And you should try using them for everything. Like you're going to interview me, ask it to do the research. In your field of expertise, it's very cheap for you to start to learn, is AI good or bad? You'll see the question, you'll be like, it's not very good at asking questions, but maybe if I ask them a different way, prompt the AI a different way, I'll get different kinds of better questions. So experimenting in your field as much as you can with real tasks is the big thing. So it's a really interesting question. We know at the individual level, both from research we've done and lots of other people, that you get individual productivity gains that are quite large. Whether those translate to company productivity gains is, at this point, you have to think about how you change your company. So let's take coding, for example. One of the biggest changes is in software programming. If you talk to any really good programmer right now, they are writing almost none of their own code. Like, literally, they instruct the AI to do things, they spend their time thinking about how to manage the AI, manage the process, but they're not writing code anymore. And so let's say you're 10 times more productive or 100 times more productive, that you're individually more productive, but has your company changed how it's making software? Or are you still sitting in a meeting where every 2 weeks you have a planning meeting, and so it doesn't matter that you're doing 100 times more work because the rest of the company is holding you back? So it's not just about individual AI use, right? That helps you as an entrepreneur, it helps you make progress, but it is beyond the individual entrepreneurial use, it is that bigger picture. How do we use AI in organizations, in companies, in government that you see productivity gains from? To me, that is the most urgent, immediate problem of AI, which is it is easy to know what to do with productivity because we've done productivity gain. IT is, for the last 30 years, what do you do when you have an IT gain? You fire people, right? We're 5% more productive, fire 5% of our workers. That is the easy path, right? And it doesn't require a lot of imagination. I think that leads you to disaster in a few ways. First of all, AI use, we just talked about, is being discovered by people using these systems in your company. No one's going to show you they're using AI in your company if they're worried they're going to get fired if they're more productive, right? So you're not going to see any productivity gains. So you're sabotaging yourself. But the bigger issue is that failure of imagination means eventually you're just turning over your business to be run by Claude, right? Or by ChatGPT. And that you have no advantage versus anyone else. So I think the big thing to experiment with is how do we make humans do more? How do we help them and support them in parts of their job that they least? That's the really big challenge. So the first thing you need to do, you need 3 pieces to succeed. You need what I call leadership, lab, and crowd. So leadership means that you need your leadership team to be thinking about this, and they have to try it themselves. They have to decide what incentives there are for people using these things. How are they going to talk about what their goals of using AI are? How are they going to start to reimagine how their company works? For the crowd is everyone using these systems. You need to give people access to a good AI model. So you need to give them access to a model and give them a little bit of training, give them encouragement to use it. And then you need the lab. You need to set up some part of your company that's doing 24/7 experimentation with AI. It doesn't have to be technical people, by the way. Often it's not technical people. It's the people in your organization who are already coming to you every day saying, I figured out a way to solve this with AI. And you're like, okay, go back to your cubicle. Those people will form your lab. So you need those 3 pieces in place. So those are 2 really hard questions. First is, it's a really bad idea for companies to give them their junior pipeline. They're going to have to think about how to train people differently, but if you don't have junior people, you're not going to have senior people in the future. So we're going to have to think differently about how we bring junior people in. They may not be as useful compared to AI, but they are important for the future. We're not seeing a huge collapse yet in sort of junior jobs. There's sort of signs it might happen. We don't really know, right? But I think that the idea is being flexible as a junior person entering the field as a student, not betting only on one thing, which is a good idea anyway. I mean, there's lots of people who wanted a job in finance in 2007, and when the financial crisis came along, those jobs weren't there. So I think maintaining some flexibility is important, but it's really on companies to think about how do they keep their junior talent pipeline going.
If you were 22 today, what would you actually do?
I think this is a golden age for entrepreneurship. I mean, if the honest truth is, the best thing you could do with your time is launch a startup company, right? It's an incredible time for that. By the way, I don't mean an AI company. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to launch yet another AI company, but where I'm seeing a lot of AI transformation is in boring businesses, where people say, like, what if I think about insurance, or what if I think about how to use AI to better manage a golf course, or how do I use AI to better manage a laundromat, right? At 22, you don't know a lot of things, you have a lot of disadvantages, but the AI does know a lot of things. So suddenly it can support you, it can help you write code, it can do all kinds of stuff for you. So there are serious people worried about this, which should be enough to take this somewhat seriously, right? Nobody knows anything. Interestingly, Nick Bostrom is now like in favor of fast AI development. So even though he invented the idea of the paperclip maximizer, so I think it is worth taking that seriously. I think that I worry a little bit that conversations about doomsday or, or that the AI saves us all and cures all disease, that stuff ends up taking all the oxygen out of the room. Because it's really hard to have an argument about how to best adopt AI in education when you're like, in 5 years we'll all be dead or saved. Like, I think the far more likely scenario, that we should worry about those kind of things, is that the world looks like this one, but projected forward, that the world has not ended or changed, and we need to spend a lot of time thinking about the world we want to build as a result. And in some ways, a really annoying answer is this is what I want everyone to be debating. Like, if we're all going to die, who cares? Or it's all hype, it's going to go away. And I don't think it's going to go away. So I think it's lots of little choices that make this decision. Is it okay to use AI to interview me? Would it be all right? I've got this great crew of people here filming me. A lot of work went into this kind of meeting. Is that a thing we would let AI do? Is that a good idea or a bad idea? We get to decide those kind of things, right? So it's not that technology is not automatic. It doesn't do things to us. We get to decide what it does. So, all the usual, nothing changes about what you want as a parent. You want your kids to be happy and kind and flexible and, successful and all of the things that you want. Humans don't change that much, right? Now, what do I want them to do to navigate a technological environment that's changing? Flexibility. But careers are long. Like, I teach students, very few of them end up going into their career the way they think it's going to be. People change jobs. Life changes where they go. Things, alter and vary. So I think resilience is important. So I think that you should think about a job as not one thing, but as many things. The jobs are bundles of tasks. So as a journalist, right, we were just talking about, there's a bunch of stuff that you already do, right? You have to be, fly here for these and fill out your expense reports and interview me and prep for an interview and, and go to story meetings and whatever, all the other things that you end up doing, right? And so if AI is good at some of that stuff, it's probably not good at all of them. It transforms your job rather than destroying it for most people. And also, you just pointed out earlier that you can expand your job too. Suddenly you can do things you couldn't do before. So I think job transformation is more likely than job destruction. I think this is a chance for exploration. So, I would go one step further, and I think it's a great time to expand what we do and to think, big, right? Ambition is rewarded right now. And even a failure is further than you'd get before and teaches you something.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For making time for us.
These were some of the best questions I was ever asked, so thank you. You're amazing. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Someday machines will be so intelligent, they'll outthink us and take over. This is completely ridiculous. There are many tasks that we can do, which it can do better. Now, is that something to worry about? Absolutely not.
Simulating you.
I have 4 children. 2 of them work full-time at NVIDIA. When your stock options vest, sell it right away.